ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday morning, March 8th. A very active weather pattern will continue across the nation for the next several days. California continues to get hit, and the Mid-Atlantic region, Northeast U.S., looks like they'll have two systems to deal with. One in the latter part of Friday night, early Saturday time period, and then another system by the early part of next week, probably Sunday night and Monday. And both of those systems can produce some accumulating snow in at least parts of the Mid-Atlantic region, Northeast U.S., and we'll focus in on those over the next several minutes. Let's start off by looking at last night's operational run of the GFS, the 0Z run. This is the total accumulated precipitation over the next 10 days. So all we're looking at here is liquid equivalent precipitation for the next 10 days. Just kind of wanted to start off with a kind of a big picture look over the longer term. And look at this, California just continues to get significant precipitation here. This will be mainly in the form of snow, across the higher elevations of the Sierra Nevada mountains. But California gets pounded. You'll hear that phrase, atmospheric river, over these next several days here, with the next couple of storms coming into California. Again, tremendous additional precipitation for not only California but the West Coast, and much of the eastern half of the nation gets a decent amount of precipitation over the next 10 days or so. Again, we'll have two systems to deal with in this part of the nation, Mid-Atlantic region, Northeast U.S., over the next several days. One late Friday into Saturday, and then a second one probably Sunday night into Monday. Well, now let's take a look at the snowfall prediction by last night's operational run of the GFS. This is over the next 10 days, so we're going out 240 hours from last night's 0Z run. First of all, Sierra Nevada, yes, continue to get pounded right here. The white is the snowfall over the next 10 days for those higher elevations of eastern California. White is virtually off the scale here, 48 inches or more. Unbelievable snowpack in the Sierra Nevada mountains right now. Probably will end up being, if not the deepest snowpack ever recorded out there, certainly in the top 2 or 3. A lot of accumulating snow in all those higher elevations out in the west, the interior west of the Rocky Mountain states, and near the western seaboard. A lot more snow over the next 10 days in northern plains, the upper part of the Midwest, and perhaps even in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. There'll be some accumulating snow with either one of these systems, maybe both of these systems. I guess best chance for snow from these next two systems in the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast U.S. will be those usual favored interior higher elevation areas, but even down into the I-95 corridor, there are possibilities, especially north of the Mason-Dixon line. Well, let's stick with the 0Z run of the GFS, and we're looking here at 500 millibar height anomalies, and then we'll take a look at the vorticity field, those areas in the atmosphere, the upper part of the atmosphere where there's some spin in the atmosphere, rotation in the atmosphere that generally leads to surface low pressure development. And those are the areas we'll monitor over the next several days for, again, not one, but two different systems look like they'll have an impact on the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast U.S. late this week and then early part of next week. First of all, very, very strong high-latitude blocking exists right now across Greenland, northern part of Canada. Earlier this month and during February, we emphasized the stratospheric warming event. Well, this is basically a lower atmosphere, a tropospheric response to that stratospheric warming event that certainly was real, lasted several weeks, and this is one of the impacts to the lower part of the atmosphere. This high latitude blocking right now, that is a big player, not only now, but at least for the next couple of weeks. It will have a large impact on where storms move across the nation, and a large impact on the temperature pattern across the nation over the next couple of weeks. We still have a reflection of a southern ridge, but we'll see here in a moment that does fade away over the next several days. Now let's move forward here. A couple systems to watch for over the next several days. First of all, here by late to, Thursday night into Friday morning right here. This is the first system that will have an impact on first the upper Midwest, then ultimately the Mid-Atlantic region, Northeast U.S. This is, again, very first system. Notice, again, here by Friday morning, still strong high latitude blocking over northern Canada and kind of a fading away of that southern ridge. It tends to retrograde or move back to the west and weaken with time here. This system will not be able to penetrate far to the north into Canada with that high latitude blocking there. It will tend to move to the eastern part of the Great Lakes and kind of weaken, and a secondary will form off the Mid-Atlantic coastline, right in that baroclinic zone, the temperature gradient area right at the coastline, with the cold land to the west and the warmer waters of the Atlantic Ocean to the east. So again, the first wave drives up into the northern Ohio Valley, the eastern Great Lakes, and we'll see a reformation or a secondary formation of low pressure along the Mid-Atlantic coastline later on Friday night going into Saturday morning. That will play a key role in a potential changeover in the I-95 corridor region from rain to snow, especially Philadelphia area up across New York City. Expect to see a changeover to snow Friday night, excuse me, as that secondary low takes over. Let's move ahead now. And again, notice this cannot penetrate farther to the north, and it shifts to the Mid-Atlantic coastline by the time we get to Saturday morning, Saturday midday. And looking farther to the west, here is a reflection already of that next system that heads across the nation and impacts the Mid-Atlantic Northeast U.S. early next week. Still, by Saturday midday, a strong reflection of high latitude blocking over northern Canada and Greenland, and a very weak ridge showing up here over the south central states. Go out a little bit farther in time. This next system kind of dives a little bit farther to the south and east, and here we are all the way by Monday morning and Monday evening, and now no reflection of that southeast U.S. ridge. Instead, we have a pretty deep trough over the eastern U.S., and again, that next second threat looks like it'll be Sunday night, Monday night time frame for the Mid-Atlantic Northeast U.S. And notice also a ridge axis here across the western U.S. That's always an important player. It tends to help intensify trough in the eastern part of the U.S. And indeed, that is in place for that second system, Sunday night, Monday night time frame. Well, let's now look at the vorticity field. Again, these are areas in the atmosphere that represent spin, and they lead to upward motion at the surface. So we like to track the movement of vorticity maxima as a way of determining where surface low pressures may form, may intensify. Then we go through the next couple of days. This is now Thursday evening, and here is that first storm system, at least the beginnings, the seeds of that first storm system that will impact the northeastern states late Friday, Friday night, Saturday. Here it is right here in the middle part of the nation. You see farther to the west, strong upper level vorticity max. That's the second system for early next week in the Mid-Atlantic region. Here we go. Again, it cannot penetrate too far to the north because of that blocking pattern over northern Canada. So it drives up to the Great Lakes and then kind of is forced to move. Notice this general wind flow here in this fashion here. This is what happens. It's a little bit more wavy than that, more like this, but this is kind of what happens when you have this high latitude blocking set up over here. You have an undercutting jet streak to the south of that high latitude blocking, and that's kind of the flow over the next several days. Let's in fact move forward in time here and watch this dive to the south and east at this particular time. Surface low pressure probably right in this region right here. So initial primary low will go up into the eastern Great Lakes, and then a secondary forms off the Mid-Atlantic coastline by Friday night into Saturday morning. The exact location of that secondary system is important, and still some details have to be ironed out, and how quickly it can intensify will be important as well. But again, it favors the scenario of rain changing to snow, even in the I-95 corridor region, at least from Philadelphia to New York City, maybe even all the way down to D.C. Friday night going into early Saturday. Let's move ahead in time here, and we see that system move away, and the next system dives a little bit more to the south and east here. Here we are now by Monday evening time frame, and we saw a moment ago on the 500 millibar height anomaly map, so it'll be a pretty deep upper level low here, and exactly where that system ends up going, how quickly it can intensify, will of course be important factors for the potential of snow Sunday night, Monday timeframe, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast U.S. But both of these systems, certainly those usual favored areas for snow, will again be favored. No question about it. North and west of I-95 has a better chance of getting accumulating snow than south and east of I-95 with both of these systems. It'll be somewhat of a struggle in D.C., Philadelphia, even New York City, as there's really no real cold air in place, marginal cold air for the I-95 corridor region. Let's go out a little bit farther in time. Here we go all the way out to Tuesday morning and finally into a week from right now, next Wednesday morning. Still some signs of a trough right near the eastern seaboard. A week from now, the middle of next week. Well, let's wrap up with the surface forecast maps from the 0Z operational run of the GFS. Windy day continues today in the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast U.S. Maybe not quite as windy as yesterday or last night, but gusts up to maybe 35 miles per hour or so, certainly on the table. D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, dry conditions. And here's the beginning of that late week system here. And we'll see right here, it gets some reinforcement in the upper part of the atmosphere by midday on Thursday. And here we go. Watch the initial primary low go all the way up into the eastern Great Lakes. Precipitation moves in probably in the form of rain in D.C. by midday on Friday and sometime during the afternoon on Friday into Philadelphia. Right here, generally rain across the immediate I-95 corridor region, although it'll be a close call in Philadelphia. And certainly the northern western suburbs certainly cannot say 100% likely for rain. Rain-snow mix is a possibility at the onset of the system later in the day on Friday. So here's that initial primary low, and then by the time we get to late Friday night, all the action shifts to the Mid-Atlantic coastline. And from this position here, a couple of things I want to point out. First of all, notice there's kind of a call an inverted trough extending in this fashion right here. That tells me that this surface low can actually get kind of pulled back to the north and west a little bit. It may end up really being a little bit closer to the coastline when you see kind of an inverted trough like that. Sometimes we refer to those as Norland troughs, where there's an extension from the center of the surface low all the way back to the west or the northwest. So right here, this is a very interesting trough that models are really picking up on, I think. And this, again, tells me that this surface low can actually end up being a little bit farther to the north and west, a little bit closer to the coastline here. And one other thing I want to point out, with this system shifting at the surface from, let's say, northeastern Ohio, the eastern Great Lakes, to off the coast, that opens the door for a changeover of snow with colder air coming from northwest to southeast on the backside of that intensifying surface low late Friday night into Saturday morning. In fact, right here you can see some green still from, let's say, Philadelphia south and east, but you get in 6 hours later, all that changes to snow. And again, we still have this trough extending all the way inland here, so this low may be a little bit tucked closer to the coastline. At this particular time, we're talking about a changeover to snow in Philadelphia, all of its suburbs, New Jersey, New York City, maybe even down in northeastern Maryland, a changeover to snow. So a possible scenario for the immediate I-95 corridor region, at least from Philly to New York, rain, and then changing over to snow late Friday night, and snow early Saturday with this western Atlantic low at this particular time. Again, I think it could be a little bit closer to the coastline. It could be a little bit more in the way of precipitation in, let's say, the southeastern part of Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Go out a little bit farther in time, and it really wraps up to a 981 millibar low at this particular time. It's still hanging on with some precipitation And that's also a sign of that extension, that trough, that northern trough, or inverted trough going back to the coast. Tends to be kind of a slowdown of the exit of the precipitation when you have trough extending to the north and west. So don't be surprised if there's some lingering precipitation in the eastern part of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, all the way into midday on Saturday. Then it pulls away, and we turn our attention to the next system. And here we go. This one again has the signs of dropping farther to the south and east, perhaps resulting in an overall colder solution, colder scenario for the Mid-Atlantic region. Here we go into Sunday night, low pressure near the North Carolina coastline, and some snow, even into the D.C. metro region, is a possibility from this system late Sunday night into Monday morning, and will go all the way out into midday Monday. And again, these details still have to be ironed out, but it pushes off to the Mid-Atlantic coastline. So again, two systems to deal with in the Mid-Atlantic region at the end of the week here, later Friday night into Saturday morning, and then again Sunday night, Monday for the Mid-Atlantic, northeastern U.S. Both cases, there'll be rain and snow, but even in the I-95 corridor region, there can be some accumulating snow, especially Philadelphia, north and east of New York City, for example, with either one of these systems. So stay tuned to arcfieldweather.com. We'll certainly update things later on today and during the rest of the week. That's it for now. I'm Arcfield Weather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian.